Hey, welcome back to another web development video. I've seen a question floating around a lot about how many hours does it take to learn how to code. So today I want to talk about how many hours it takes to learn how to code before you're job ready, why it takes that many hours, and then what you can do to maybe help speed up some of this process and maybe cut a few hours off. So first of all, I've seen this question floating around on message boards and Twitter. How many hours does it take to learn how to code a program? It's about 1,000 in my opinion, and I've seen this reflected in some other people's opinions as well. And that might be more of a minimum number. Once you get past a few hundred hours, it's really hard to kind of keep track. You know, how many hours actually have you spent, learning something? So I would say really it's about 1,000. Why that is, it's because there's so much to learn, right? There's, we'll just take web development. That seems to be a pretty common starting point for a lot of people, what they want to get into, as well as what I do and what I know. I'm a web developer. All right, it's a repetition, right? Some of it just comes down to memorization, and you need to know several different types of technology, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a framework, maybe how to deploy something a little bit, terminal commands, GitHub, and then you also need to build up, kind of your abilities to be able to make all these things work together and get them online and that type of thing. So why does it take so much time to necessarily learn these things? Well, they're hard. You have to, if you're starting from zero, right, you have to learn all the concepts, starting from things like variables and JavaScripts, to understanding what a div is and how you actually, can connect the files in a framework and things like that. So it's hard, it's a lot of work, and the memorization part, it's no joke. If you cannot remember what a variable does, then you're not going to get very far programming, and there's just no shortcuts with that. So jumping around tech, that's another thing why it takes so long for some people to learn. If you are learning one language, let's say Python, and then you decide you're going to switch into C#, they're very different languages. They have different syntax. Sure, they might have some of the same concepts in them, but you have to restart all of your knowledge, basically from zero, especially if you don't have a good firm grasp on that first technology. You hear about, you see videos where learn XYZ, learn computer in 1 hour, learn a framework in 1 hour, or whatever it is. And those are mostly kind of refreshers for maybe senior level people because they are already familiar with the language or something like that. They just need to know how a few things work. Then they can kind of get it going. But that's because they have so much experience and instincts that they understand how some of these things already work. But if you're going from zero, it's so hard to connect those things. So jumping around is really one of the reasons why it takes some people so much time. So what you can do to help speed up the process? Well, first thing, you want to practice the right thing. So you need to figure out what you want to do. Why are you trying to learn how to code, and what you want to do with that code, and perhaps what type of developer you might want to be. That's a really tough question when you're just first learning because you might not know. If that's the case and you don't know exactly what you want to be, you want to think about what you don't want to be in that case. Maybe you really like testing. Then you want to think about, okay, well, I need to learn testing things. Maybe you really like games. Well, you need to, do a little Googling and try to see what people say about what technologies right now you should be learning to do games. If you just want to kind of jump in and make web pages, then, start learning web development. And when it comes to speeding up that process as well, and practicing the right things, that means, practicing current technologies, not jumping around, and making sure that you are doing things that are going to help you be job ready. What I mean by this is if you go on Twitter and you start looking at CSS art and you want to make some, that's great, and that's a really cool talent that some people have to make CSS art. But I don't know if that's going to get you a job. I don't know how many jobs are out there for people to make CSS art and CSS clocks and CSS pizza and things like that. So you want to kind of stick to the things that candidates are going to want. Another thing you can do to help speed up the process, besides going out there and reading and kind of searching for, I wouldn't call them shortcuts, but tips, to help yourself out. Ask for help. There's a lot of people out there, Reddit, Twitter, all over the internet, you know, hey, I could use some help with something. What direction should I go into? What should I look into here? I'm really struggling with this. Is there something else I could do? All those types of things. The dev community is very cool and very helpful when it comes to a lot of those things. So I would definitely make sure that you do go out there and ask for help, and just getting pointed in the right direction. Learning how to, you know, I need to learn Git, right? I need to learn how to use GitHub right now. Well, there are some people that can probably point you to some very helpful guides and give you some good tips and what you actually need to know with Git and what you don't need to know right now with Git, stuff like that. So being able to get pointed in the right direction can save you so much time. So highly, highly recommended. And then, you know, lastly, figuring out your learning style. How do you learn best? For me, it's a video, watching somebody else code, explain it to me, and then if I watch that a couple of times, follow along and then start building on my own. So for you, it might be tutorials like that. It might be written tutorials. It might be just books and just reading. It might be just straight up documentation. Everybody has a little bit of a different learning style, and finding out what works best for you. Maybe flashcards work really well for you. Maybe you can't stand flashcards and you just need to write out variables again and again and again until you figure out what they are. Whatever that is, if you can figure that out, your learning style, that's going to help you so much get over that hump and learn faster versus struggling with something like documentation. I'm not great at reading documentation. I struggle with it. It doesn't always click on my head, but if I can watch somebody do something with it, then that usually makes a lot more sense to me. So that's my learning style. So whatever works for you works best for you. So that's my video. Remember, it's about 1,000 hours. If you're just getting into this and you aren't sure how many hours you got into it, but you're beginning and you're trying to learn, or you're stuck on tutorial hell and trying to learn a framework or something like that and trying to get a dev job, don't forget to, when you start getting over 500, 800 hours, go ahead and apply. If you can get a couple of interviews, maybe you get lucky, but more than likely you'll probably figure out where you're at. And if you're studying the right types of things, if you're getting any traction in those interviews, if you can get past just a phone screen and actually get in and sit down and talk to somebody, they might point out that, hey, we really like you, but you're missing some of the skills that we want. You don't know databases or something like that. And you can definitely use those things as a guidepost. So you don't have to hit that 1,000 before you start applying, but that's probably where you're going to start getting a lot more success and start passing interviews. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.